So we've all heard that saying of nice guys finish last or being too nice in life, people run you over and doing things like that. And I somewhat agree. And there's a difference between, but there's also people that are kind though, right? And a lot of people don't understand what the difference between being nice and being kind really is. What is the difference though? Being nice, and this is just my personal experience, or don't take it too personal. This is just something that I think is the most different between the two, because they both give you good feelings. They're both positive words. They both have positive definitions, but being nice sometimes leads you down a road of being tired, worn out, impatient, misled. But being kind is actually showing maturity, because now you introduce respect. Now you introduce boundaries. Now you introduce not just giving your all because you can, but correcting things when they need to be corrected, and giving it your all when you are most led to do so. Because we have to look at it like, just because you think that Christ was the nicest, quote unquote, nicest person there was to live on earth and stuff like that, it's not to even say that. First of all, it's the most righteous. Not the nicest, but the most righteous. And he was kind to others, but I wouldn't say he was really a nice guy. Because a lot of times, he probably wanted to say a lot of different things or go about things a different way. He had to flip a table in the temple. He had to correct people in ways that they were rebuking religious leaders, rebuking the disciples, rebuking people that were around him that wanted to lead him a different way. And if he was just a nice person, he would have just went that way. And now I'm talking about personal experience, because I was always that nice guy, right? Not saying that I finished last because of people doing me wrong. It's not about that. Because if you read the word, what people do when people do you wrong, or the things that are meant for evil, meant for bad, is actually in God's plan that's meant for good and actually to build you. So you can't really say that being a nice guy is finishing last is because people are doing you wrong. It's not necessarily that, because you can be kind and people do you wrong. You can be mean and people do you wrong. It doesn't matter, right? But the biggest difference is whenever you are being nice, now you are overcompensating at times. You are feeling empty rather than fulfilled. You're not satisfied, but everybody else is around you. So think of it like this. If we are in a walk with God, a walk with Christ on this journey, there are times whenever we are people pleasing more than when we are God pleasing, right? That's the difference between really being nice and being kind. A lot of times when you are being nice, you are putting other things and other people above God in your relationship. But if you're being kind, you are regulating boundaries, telling people, hey, this is not what I do, but this is, I'm telling you this because I love you and I cherish you and I want the best for you, right? Our parents weren't always nice to us, but they were kind to us. They disciplined us when it was time, when it was necessary, but they were also strict enough to realize and tell us that, especially if you grew up in a black household, that I'm not your friend was a phrase used in the household. I'm not like the rest of your little friends that's the same age as you. I'm 30 years older than you, 40 years, 20 years older than you, whatever. We are not on the same level. And we have to see that whenever we see how God deals with us and how he deals with others in life, even in the word. We see it as God punishing people, but if he doesn't punish us, if he doesn't discipline us, if he doesn't give us structure, we are going to be going around acting like chickens with our head cut off. We will have no direction. We will have no way to go in and out of life or situations, because we are simply using our emotions and feelings more than we're using our heads. God didn't give you a brain to not use it. Yes, love. Yes, cherish. Yes, be patient. Yes, be kind. Have joy. But if you notice in the word, the fruit of the Spirit is to be kind, not nice. Because yes, they both have positive references, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're good things. And I believe that being nice is something that can ultimately leave you astray, right? Because when you're being nice, that means you are avoiding conflict at all costs. Don't want to bring anything up. Not saying you have to do it abruptly or do it rudely, but there are ways of bringing things up in a respectful manner, right? To where you get your point across. And if that other person doesn't really understand that or doesn't want to try to get their point across in the right way, at least you were kind enough and mature enough to really think about what you wanted to say and then go for it, right? Being nice often means never saying no. No boundaries, no structure. You're going to be led wherever anybody pulls your strings. Telling people what they want to hear. How many of us have ever been told what we want to hear and then it still gets us in trouble? How many of us go to somebody knowing what we want to hear when they tell us something different? Now you get a little bit of a sour feeling towards them. What is that? That's because when there is correction and love, when there is discipline and love, when there is sacrifice and love, those are things that don't feel bad, but it's all under the umbrella of something that means so much, that is so good, that is so abundant, right? So you have to think about things kind of in a deeper manner, especially whenever you are living in a spiritual life. When you're looking at somebody, you're not talking to them, their flesh, you're talking to their spirit. That's why God talks about so much about where your heart is positioned, and how you speak is what comes from your heart. So words and everything, that is a spiritual manner. That is something that you cannot see, cannot touch, but you can feel and you can hear, right? You can sense things based off of people's tones and the words that they use. But let's just jump into being kind. Being kind and mature means speaking truth with love, right? Setting healthy boundaries, correcting when correction is needed, saying no when necessary. So there's not much difference between being nice and being kind. You just have to know when to say no and when to have boundaries. I used to want to do everything for everybody, and when I'm pulling myself apart and doing all that, but then when it's my time to do something, when I need something, it's not always dealt with the same. And then I find myself being angry at people, being angry at God, wondering why is it that I'm being nice and people ain't being nice to me and doing all that stuff. First off, it doesn't matter how you treat people. People going to be people. If they going to treat you the way they're going to treat you, that's the decision they made. You got to go about that the way you're supposed to go about that. And one of those ways is being kind and not being nice. Stop sticking around situations and people and things that aren't helping you. Be kind enough and strong enough to realize that, you know what? It's better for me to separate myself from you before I get upset, before I see myself doing things I'm not supposed to be doing, before I let bad company ultimately deteriorate my good judgment, because that happens a lot. When you are too nice, you become persuaded in many other ways that if you were just kind and had barriers and had structures and had boundaries, then maybe those things wouldn't have happened. Maybe those things wouldn't have occurred, right? But we can't live in the past. What I'm saying is, moving forward, we have to have structure. We have to have discipline in this life. And a lot of times that is meaning being kind. So Jesus, though, right? Jesus was incredibly kind. He healed the sick. He fed the hungry, forgave sinners, and welcomed outcasts. But he wasn't always nice, right? What I said before, he flipped the tables in the temple because they were treating it like it was a store, like it was a little marketplace, right? He rebuked religious leaders, right? Even whenever they hated him for it, they were going against him for it, he still rebuked them. Not to say that, oh, I'm Jesus and I'm rebuking you, but it's because I'm saving you from God's wrath. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to save you from what you are going to be ultimately condemned and burning before God if you don't get this right. He told people hard truths, sometimes walked away from people instead of pleasing them. Some people rather just be healed and not even thank God, though. Don't thank Christ. Walked away. Lived the way they lived. And you know what? It wasn't God or Christ didn't heal them because, well, he was nice enough to heal them, because God led him to heal them. And when you're led to do something, you feel different about it than whenever you're not really led to do it, but you just feel nice enough to do it. Yeah, I'm not saying don't help somebody on the side of the road. I'm not saying this. I'm not saying don't do the random act of kindness and stuff like that, right? So even with that, it's a random act of kindness, not niceness. Everybody struggles. Everybody's going through things. You can't save anybody. You can't save anybody. There's nothing you can do that's nice enough or kind enough to ever save somebody else. That's what God does. God is in the business of transformation and revival. Being able to break things down and then revive them, transforming them, and then make them even better. But you have to be able to tell and have good judgment and have good discernment to know when to be kind and when to be nice, right? There's going to be sacrifice. There's going to be tribulation. There's going to be challenge in it. But you have to know when to do things and when not to do it. It's as simple as that. A mature believer learns that kindness asks what's best for this person rather than niceness asks for how do I keep this person happy. Some of us have asked ourselves that. How can I keep this person happy? You're tearing yourself apart doing that. But what's best for this person? Even if you have to remove yourself out of a situation or an equation or a group or a relationship or whatever, a job, what is best for this person, or rather than what's going to make this person happy? What can I do to make this person happy so they can stop? If you got to live like that, that's not necessarily the right way to live. If you're going to please everybody else, you're going to end up finding God and then not realizing how to please God. Because you don't please everybody else so much, you don't have enough for God. But if you realize what is right for this person, what can I do now that's going to be the best for you? That might not feel good, that might not look good, that might not sound good, but it's building you up. So many times we read in the word that God does these things and you're like, man, like God is really talking to me, man. I'm wicked, I'm a wretch, I'm not good or anything like that. God was kind enough to let you know that. He's not nice saying, well, it's okay. Just no, God is saying, if you don't get right, then you're going to go to hell. Christ has came to us and said, this is what you need to do to live right. Get that relationship with God so you don't have to go to hell. You can live in the kingdom with us. There's a big difference between being nice and being kind. And I want you to think about that. Really, as you go through these days, through the week, whatever you want to say, continue to build and continue to grind each and every day. Work on yourself a little bit. Work on being kind. Work on being nice. But work on being kind more than you're being nice. Yeah, when you have the extra, when you're doing all that, not saying like you have to use discernment on every situation. You have to use judgment on every situation. It doesn't matter if they're a stranger or if they've known you your whole life. You have to know what barriers, what boundaries that you have to place in the structure so then your life isn't spiraling out of control. Because I promise you, nobody's going to be able to save you or help you in that manner. Only God can. But if you're pleasing everybody else and then you go to them whenever you are in times of struggle, you'll see how short people can come and how far God can really go. But as always, bro, I appreciate y'all for tapping in with me, man. Thank y'all so much for 500 plus subscribers, bro. Please, 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 man. Let's continue to spread the word. Let's continue to spread the gospel. Let's just learn to do the little things right, bro. But as always, I appreciate y'all, man. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe on the channel, on the episode, especially if you liked it, bro. And as always, I'm going to catch y'all on the next one.